Daf, there he is. Sorry, my mistake. Here on Daf Memches Amud Aleph at the top Mishnah. Halacha Gimel. Sarah b'Shem and Shel Truma. Who rated you got here? Sarah b'Shem and Shel Truma. You anoint the Korban Pesach with oil of Truma. This actually was used kind of like barbecue sauce, A1 Truma sauce. Im Chaburas Kari, if it's a group of Kohanim Yochlu, they can eat it. Im Shal Yisrael, if it's Yisraelim. Im Chai, if it's still raw, you can rinse off the Truma. Im Tzli, if it's already roasted. Yiklo, if it's a chiton, you have to peel off the outer layer. Sarah b'Shem and Shel Ma'aser Sheni, use Ma'aser Sheni oil. Lo yazen udoim mnei chabura. You should not make it. You should not pay other members of chabura for their portions and vice versa. Fishay mochim Ma'aser Sheni b'Yerushalayim. By the way, I started speaking to him. You asked me to do it, I started already. See what a good boy I am? Okay. Because one is not allowed to sell Ma'aser Sheni in Yerushalayim. Okay? Lo amar ela socho. It only says socho, which means that you like painted it with oil, brushed it with oil. But if you actually dip, then it's also because if it's dipped, then it actually absorbs, right? But if you brush it with barbecue sauce, so it doesn't absorb as much as if you actually dip it. We did not have the schiluk in the Bavli. The Bavli never drew such distinctions, but it's a logical distinction to say that if you dip it, it gets more absorbed, and then you'd be forbidden. A non-Kohen would be forbidden to eat the Pesach under those circumstances. Now here, as a result, comes very interesting Maisa. Everybody disagrees what the pshat in this Maisa is. Certain individual cooked a hen with shem and sreifa, with oil of truma. Now, were you to touch this up yourself? Let's play before Yerushalmi here. Were you to touch this up yourself? How would you translate the case? What happened here?
This happened in Erev
No, not Erev Pesach, just the west of the year. Shem and Sreifa is oil of Truma, which is Tameh, right? Which must be burnt. You can't consume it. So what do you do? What actual circumstance? Describe me what the person did. What? And what do you do with it?
He used it for cooking.
Used it for? Used it as fuel?
No.
You say?
He painted the...
Very good. You see, here we have a machloket to for Yerushalmi. The Pnei Moshe says he dunked it into the Shemetz Reifa, and now he doesn't know what to do. The other Meforshim, including the Mechal Mayim and the Mashbiach, say that he used the Shemetz Reifa as fuel. Okay? Now, depending on which way you interpret that...
I say that because that's the case that preceded it.
I understand. You're totally within your rights to interpret that way. So this is... So he came and asked Rabbi Bista what to do. Amarle Azo Shulka. Go cook it very, very well. So according to Pnei Moshe's interpretation, it comes out a tremendous chiddush that if you cook it very well, the oil actually comes out. It's like Hagolah, right? Hagolah works on the chicken. So the other people don't like that because they say we never found Hagolah on chickens. So they say that rather it means that it's talking the hano you got for using Shemetz Reifa as fuel, the way you described it, is counteracted when you cook it again. Because when you cook it again and overcook it, then any hano you got is overcome because you have to cook it again anyway, above and beyond the first shiur. Okay? So those are the two interpretations here. See, you guys can write Pushim Yerushalmi already. So kids, that's that Maisa. Kini Masnisa. This is the way to learn our Mishnah. There is no principle Ein Mochrin. This is going to the next part of our Mishnah. There is no principle Ein Mochrin Ma'aser Shei B'Yerushalayim. What it means to say it's Ein Poidim Ma'aser Shei B'Yerushalayim. Now to redeem Ma'aser Shei B'Yerushalayim. Since there's such a principle, now to redeem it. So that's why you're not allowed to sell it. In other words, the byproduct of that principle is our Mishnah. There is no actual principle about Mechira. Chamisha Dvarim Boim B'Tumah. There are 5 things which come when they are Tamei. Vein Necholim B'Tumah, that may not be eaten when they are Tamei. Ha'omer, the Korban Omer, second day Pesach. Ushtei Alechem, the 2 breads which are bought on Shavuos. V'lechem HaPari, the 12 breads which are bought every Shabbos. V'zivchei Shamei Tzibur, the Karbonos which accompany the Shtei Alechem, which are two lambs which are slaughtered and brought, the Kohanim eat them. And the Yerushalmi is going to ask, wait a minute. So that's the Shtei Alechem, it's the same thing. But we'll get that momentarily. Useir Rosh Chodeshim, and the goats brought on Rosh Chodesh. All these things, even though they should be eaten, they are not eaten again because they're brought B'tumah. HaPesach Shabbat B'tumah, however, Pesach is unlike all those. Pesach which comes in Tumah, Necha B'tumah, it is eaten when you are Tamei. Shelo Ba Mitchilos L'Achil, though thrust and point of Korban Pesach is to eat. So therefore, whenever Pesach is Huchar B'tzibor, unlike any other Korban, it is eaten B'tzibor B'tumah as well. Okay? As the word of Korban B'tzibor and Boim B'tumah, I don't understand. What about all the other Korban which could be brought B'tumah? A Tamid, a Musaf, all those things, right? You're only mentioning 5. What about all the other ones? So that's more a very simple answer. We didn't only want to come tell you that Avo B'Shem Boim B'tumah. These are the ones, even though they come B'tumah, Eidan Necholim B'tumah. All the other Korban Sibur are olos. There's nothing to eat, right? It's only Chatos and Shlamim of Kod Sibur where the site eat. So the other ones are not even discussing. We only discuss what's there where you might be able to eat them. I tell you that you shouldn't eat them. Okay? Says more, Bein Kamadom Alechamikar, Bein Kamadom Kvasi-Mikar. Regardless of whether you say the bread of the Shtei Alechem at Shavuos is primary, or the 2 lambs which are brought with them are primary, nevertheless, Arboinun. There are only 4. Because the 2 of your categories are the same. So it says, Martani Tanya Chashlon. Our Tana didn't know which is primary, and therefore he took both into account. And he mentions 5, even though it's really 4. Okay, Istani Tani. There's those who learn Kulam Lemeidim in our Pesach that all these korbanos are learned out from Korban Pesach. Istani Tani Kol Echad Lo Echad Lo Yimkomo. There are those who said each one of these has its own specific source. Ma'adamar Kulam Lemeidim Pesach. He says Roland Aver Pesach. Ma Moado Shnemer Pesach Dochas Tuma. Just says Moado, which is stated by Pesach, pushes off Tuma. Ap Moado Shnemer Bekulan Dochas Tuma. So to the Moado stated by all these pushes off Tuma. Ma'adamar Kol Echad Echad Lo maybe in Koimo Minayle. Who says each one of them has their own name? How does he know that? The Asya Kardot, the Tani Rebbe, because he says that like Rebbe said. I'm sorry, Asya Kardot, the Tani, like that we learn in Brisa. Rebbe Omer Rebbe says, Matam lo v'edibem Moshe es moadei Hashem. This is about the Karbonos in Parshas Emor. So it says there, by the Ben Moshe Modei Hashem. And these are Karbanos, not the Musafim. Musafim and Parshas Pinchas. These are the Karbanos section in our Mishnah, which are additional Karbanos which are brought on Yontif, besides the Musafim which are listed in Pinchas. So Matam Lomar, by the Ben Moshe Modei Hashem. I only know the Pesach. And Tommy push off Shabbos. Says Moado Shar Korban Korban Sibur 9. I don't know if it's true about all other Korban Sibur Tamulomar, because it says Eile Tasu LaHashem Moadechem. Now this is really this is the word by the Musafim. First, we're bringing this down to tell you that Musafim are Daicha Shabbos. Says these you should do for Atu Hashem on their proper times, which means that they're Docha Shabbos, because Moed always means that it's Docha Shabbos. La'omer v'la'korivimo. How do I know that the other korbanos which are not musafim, such as the omer, that which is brought by it, l'shtei alecha, the two breads, l'korivimo, and that which is brought by with them, lo shemana, they're not included in Eilu Tasula Hashem. It says in Parshas Emor, in conjunction with them, by the Ben Moshe's Modeh Shemnei Israel, Kavan Choyvesh Kulei Avo B'Tuma, that teaches us this principle that they all come B'Tuma, just like they all during Shabbos, again because of the language of Moed, right? Now, ask the Gemara, Ukshem Shem Boyim B'Tuma, Kach Yuneh Cholim B'Tuma. You can bring them when you're talking, it should be allowed to eat them when you're talking as well. Xeris HaKosavu, no, it's a Xeris HaKosavu. V'abosor she'igah b'chol tomei lo yechel. But meat which touches anything tomei should not be eaten. Yomer up at Pesach. Okay, let's say that that's true about Pesach as well. That shad should not be eaten. Shani shloba mitchilas alachila. Pesach is it because it initially comes only to eat, so therefore it must be consumed. Again, that's the unique quality of Korban Pesach. Okay. Says the next Mishnah. Lochahei. Nidma bosar v'achel of kayim. Let's say you have a Korban Pesach in which the meat became tamei, but the chalev, the imurim, are still extant and tar. Eino zorekas adam. You can't do zrikas adam. Why? Because Pesach is unique, as the Gemara will explain here too. Nidma chalev, if vice versa, the imurim became tamei, but basar kayim, and the meat is still extant and tar, then yes, you are zorekas adam. It's the exact. It's not like that. It's not the opposite. Just not like that. Which, regardless of which one's still around, even if the meat is tamei, but the chalev is still extant, zorekas adam, you're allowed to do zrikas adam. What's the difference? Again, the same. The difference you said before. Pesach is meant to eat. Therefore, if you still have basar, you do zrikas adam. If you don't have basar, you can't do zrikas adam. That's not true by all the other korbanos. But the korbanos, they're equally significant for the murim, they're called the mizbech, as they are for the achila asadam, which a human being eats. And therefore, as long as any part of those two is still extant and tar, you do zrikas adam. Okay? Now, my masnis dulok Rabbi Nosson. We're going to be concerned with Rabbi Nosson until almost till the end of the evening. This is the evening. This is not like Rabbi Nosson. The Rabbi Nosson Rabbi Nosson holds you yoytze your Korban Pesach, even if you just do zrikas adam without eating. So therefore, even if the basar is no longer extant, you should be allowed to do zrika on the because of the chalev, right? My timer. What pasuk teaches us? All the congregation should slaughter it between the evenings. Also, in Rabbi Nosson Darshans, also Avo B'Sheicham Ela Pesach Echad. Also, it's singular. It means even if there's only one Korban Pesach for all of Am Yisrael, Kulan Yoitzim is Rika Achas. All of Am Yisrael is Yoitzim with one Rikas Adam. Ve'efshar Kazayis Kol Echad Ve'echad. Is it possible that everybody's going to get a Kazayis in one Korban Pesach? Ella, what must we say? It must be that you do not have to all have a portion of Korban Pesach with the Kazayis. And by extrapolation, we infer that even if ain't nobody getting any part of the Korban Pesach, because the basar became tamei, you still do zrikas adam. Why? Because Rabbi Nosson holds a Pesach is not qualitatively different than any other korban, that it doesn't matter whether you get to eat or not, you can still do zrikas adam, even if all you have left is the imurim. Okay? Also, the word also, which means a solitary, single solitary Korban Pesach could hypothetically be mighty ganz Klal Yisrael. Okay? Says the Gemara further, Pshita Damil. So getting back to other korbanos for a moment. This is simple. Nidma basar v'murim kayomim. If the flesh became tamei and the imurim is still extant, zorikas adam al imurim, you do zorikas adam al imurim. Nidma imurim v'abasar kayim. If the imurim became tamei and the meat is still extant, zorikas adam al basar. They do zorikas adam on the meat. What about Nidma basar v'avdu imurim? Nothing is left. The flesh is tamei. The imurim are gone. Kedus because of them and other korbanos. Rabbi Simi said, "Hain big typo here instead of kaim, it should be komets." To think about menachos. By menachos, there's komets. That's the fistful of flour to put on his back. That's tantamount by mincha to the zrikas adam. And then there's the shirayim, the rest of the mincha, which is tantamount in the mincha to achila. There are no what by mincha? No imurim, right? There's just komets and achila, shirayim. There's no imurim. Obviously, the imurim is wrapped into the komets, which is rikas adam. Okay? So, as the Gemara, so it says Gemara, Amar Rabbi Simi, ha'en komets, lo kimoshe nitma b'habasar v'avdu imurim. If you have only the komets, and there are no shirayim left, it's like the basar stomach, and the imurim are gone, who atoimer komets, and you say, do komets over there, of ha'chazarik. So which implies you do zrikas adam, even if there ain't no flesh and ain't no imurim neither. So says Mar, no. Amar Rabbi Mana, there's a word missing there. Should be Amar Rabbi Mana, Tipater Rabbi Lezer. That's only true of Rabbi Lezer. So Rabbi Lezer, Alpha Pishain Shiraim Yesh Kometz. He holds, even though there's no Shiraim, there is a Kometz. We don't paskin like him. Because since we don't paskin like him, so therefore we have no proof from there to our issue over here about whether no imurim and no komets. No imurim and no basar. Shirai became tamei before he did the kmitza. As you were traveling to the mizbeach with your komets, the shirai became tamei.
Does the komets come first? That's what I would think.
No, but you can't eat them.
It's the leftover of what you didn't have.
You did kmitza, and then a dead rodent fell on the shiraim.
But you did kmitza?
No, but the kmitza, oh, I see what you're saying. No, that's not sufficient. What's the primary component of the kmitza avodah? Putting the kmitza on the mizbeach. The pill, taking it up from the shiraim. That's called, although that's called the kmitza, that's like the kabbalah sadam. The actual essential component of the kmitza is the putting on the mizbeach. So between the time he took the kmitza and he put it on the mizbeach, at that time became tummy. Okay. By the way, something which I don't think I've remarked on in the past, and bears remarking here, is that the dots in Yerushalmi completely unreliable. I have commented on it? Oh. Well, here's the case like that. That dot, and there's going to be another one later on, between Avi, Shein, Shiraim, Yesh Kometz, is out of place. Should be a dot after Yesh Kometz. Okay, so the person who put them in was an ignoramus. Now, the next sugi is kind of a cryptic one. Till now we've been sailing along. Now we run into some shoals. But Batumas Oivdi. Okay, this is talking about. We want to know. We're asking a question. If the Pesach comes and it's tahor, Pesach is completely tahor. But what happens if the blood is sprinkled by a kohen who's tamei? Now, of course, how is that possible? So the way the Gemara will explain, hey chavida, the chayra manavshach. If the kohanim are tamei, so they're metamei when the shchita is also betuma, right? How's possible to have kohanim who are only metamei the zrika and not metamei the shchita? So says what I'll tell you, shachta so bali mumin. Let's say their kohanim or bali mumin or atzar. Now the truth is, you could also be shoichet bezar. But generally the Kohanim would not allow that. They would make the Kohanim Bali Mumin would shecht. So all the Kohanim were Bali Mumin were Tahar, and they did the Shechita. The Kohanim were Tzmeim. Of course, Kohanim Bali Mumin cannot serve without based on Mikdash in any other capacity, even if the other Kohanim are Tamei. So who did this Zrika? Kohanim Tzmeim. So it comes to an interesting situation here. The Kohanim who did the Zrika Saddam were Tamei. The Kohanim who did the Shechita are Tahar. The body of the korban remains Tahar. The blood becomes Tamei. What about the guys who are going to eat this korban tonight? Can they be eaten betuma? Since Tuma is Hutra B'tzibur that year? Or do I say no? The true tumor is hutter for the Zrikas Adam. The Zrikas Adam was done by Tomei Kohanim, but the meat of the korban remained tar. So therefore the eaters that night have to eat a b'tahara. That's the Gemara's question. Okay? So says again, Hey Chavida, Shalta so by moving a Zarko, so big typo here, Tmeim. And Tmeim through the blood. So Amar, it's a machlokas. Amar Rabbi said, V'abosar she'igah b'chol Tomei lo yachel. Right? It says, Bosar which touches to a Tomei sharp eaten. Hare lo yigah bo Tomei. So here, no Tomei touched it. V'abosar kol Torah yochel basar. In that case, if no Tomei touched it, so every Torah should eat it. Hareish katorim shilchu, the Torah who can eat it. So therefore, meaning in this case, yutake are not allowed to be matami the meat, although the dam was tummy, but the meat is distinct. Rabbi Zir said no. Miyacha sheilu haPesach haba betuma v'neacheles betuma. Since a Pesach, which from the get-go becomes tamei, because tumu tzibur tzibur kaim beaten betuma v'hacha kemisha ba betuma. Here it's tantamount to having kam betuma, and therefore the people who eat that night do not have to be makbi to eat a b'tahara. They don't have to ensure that.
It's not a tzibur here. It's not too much of a tzibur. It's just this one korban.
No, all the Kohanim are tamei. Otherwise, we would give it to another Kohen. It's got to be all the Kohanim are tamei. So, okay, so all the Kohanim are tamei. So, Vaida Omar should be Da, not Da Omar. In other words, where do we see Rabbi Zira say such a thing? Where do we have precedent for this? Rabbi Shmuel Omar Rabbi Zira, Rabbi Shmuel Nein Rabbi Zira, boy. This is the precedent. Although we're not going to actually get to the precedent until the top of next Amud, but this is what we're setting it up. Shmuel Amr Rabbi Zira said this elsewhere as well, that the Shmuel told the name Rabbi Zira, they asked the question, Ba b'tumaz dam. If a korban comes with tamei blood, okay? Now, this is not the Kohen becoming tamei. The blood became tamei. And it's not a case of tumo utra b'tzibur. Only this one guy's korban's blood became tamei. As the blood was being brought to Mizbeach, a dead rodent fell into it. Okay? So, Ba b'tumaz dam. Hey Chavira, what's such a case? Actually, the way I'm interpreting this Gemara called the way Lieberman interprets it, which is the name of the Aruch HaShulchan, the Meich HaMayim. So the question, the Gemara's question, Hey Chavira, means what was Rabbi Zira's question? Rabbi Zira's question assumes that there's a havamina. There's a havamina that when the blood becomes tummy, the korban can still be kosher. How could that possibly be? If it's not a year in which Tuma Utra B'tzibor, Hey Chavida, how would it still be mutter? So I'll tell you. Me'achashem en matirin lo lizrog, it's possible to look at this two ways. Possibly, it's possible to say, since we don't allow him to throw the blood, Kimisha Ba B'tuma, it's like something which with a korban which came B'tuma, and therefore, of course, it's no good. Oh, Me'achar she'ilu za'avar v'zora kurza, since if you did get the Mizbeach and throw this tamei blood on the Mizbeach, Kimisha Lo Ba B'tuma, perhaps it's not as if it came B'tuma. Now, what does all this mean? The halacha is, we know, tzitzis meratzah. The Kohen go to wear the tzitzis, and tzitzis meratzah tumas mikdash v'kadashav, right? And it makes it acceptable. So perhaps here too, although the blood became tamei, perhaps if it got, of course you have to start the process if you realize what's going on. But what happens if you didn't start the process, and the blood actually reached the Mizbeach? Are you going to say the korban because the tzitzis meratzah or not? That's the Gemara's question. Okay? So says the Gemara, the Shmina min Ador. Let's learn it from here. Tom Rabbi Yesha said, V'nasa Aaron es avona kodashim. The Aaron should bear the sin of the kodashim. Now we come to why we brought this down. Avon krevim, it's the avera of either the imurim or a dam which are tamei, v'lo avon makrivim, but not the avera of the kohen who's tamei. Interesting. If the blood becomes tummy, but it reaches the mizbeach, tzitzis maratza. However, let's say the opposite case, if the kohen is tummy, and then it reaches the mizbeach, the tzitzis not maratza. Right? The kohen doing the avodah b'tumah is not, tzitz doesn't help for that. It's only if the blood itself or the carbon itself was tummy. It's a chefza thing, right? It's really a chefza gavra thing. It's really the case. If the carbon becomes tummy, not if the guy becomes tummy. So says the Gemara. So what do we want? What are we trying to be down for Rabbi Yeshua? So it says so he wants to contend the Gemara wants to contend that bar betumas dam, the case which we brought down at the beginning, depends. If it's the nitma adam, so it's possible yaitse. If the kohen himself is tamei, not the blood, or well, of course he's metame the blood, but if the kohen himself is tamei, then you're not yaitse. Okay. Now, it says more, maybe not. Wait a minute. Maybe I can make a chiluk here. Hivish ben craving liyochil, the craving l'tzibur. Maybe there's a difference between the craving for a yochid and the craving of the tzibur. Meaning that perhaps by yochid, he's perhaps a yochid where the kohen is tamei, so then the kohen becomes possible, and not yaitse yichiv. But perhaps where, as we mentioned before, too much b'tzibur, right? And kohanim tmeim are being oived because there aren't any kohanim torim. Perhaps there, you know what? Perhaps there, since the tumah zutra b'tzibur is permissible, right? You're allowed to go ahead in that case. So maybe there, not only is the carbon kosher, but also retains its character, and you're not allowed to eat it b'tumah if it's only the kohanim who threw the blood or tamei, not the kohanim who shechted the carbon. Okay, it's hard to follow because it's choppy. What? First, the first line Gemara said wanted to draw a distinction. It says it depends if the blood becomes tummy, the kohen becomes tummy. Kohen becomes tummy, the tzitz is not maratza. From this, what we would want to infer back to our case is that therefore, even where tumas hutra b'tzibur and the kohen becomes tummy, and we allow to avoida still, not still. There's two extra for. Let me start that line over again. So that where the kohen becomes tummy, we allow to avoid b'tumah, that there's something. What's the word? Something defective about this korban pesach, and therefore, despite the fact that technically the korban remained tor, because remember, kohanim balimum torim shechted it, nevertheless you're allowed to be matamei. Again, because it's defective. What's the riot's defective? That if it's a yochid's korban to which the same thing happens, the korban's no good, because it since it's only meratze on tumas krevim, on the blood and on the imurim which became tamei, not on the kohen who became tamei. So therefore, when it happens b'tzibur, even though it's permissible, because too much are b'tzibur, nevertheless it's defective korban, you can be metamei. That's what the Yerushalmi wanted to say. When the Yerushalmi says hivish ben craving l'kyochid, craving yochid, craving tzibur, there, the way the Aruch HaShulchan interprets it, we want to say that no. Perhaps by yochid, if the kohen's tamei, it doesn't work, and of course he cannot eat. But by a tzibur, where actually we're mati the kohanim to throw the blood on the mizbeach, even though they're tamei, there where it works, perhaps it works, and there's no defect. And since there's no defect, you can't eat the korban b'tumah, you have to eat the korban b'tahara. It's not 100% smooth. I don't even know it's 75% smooth, but that's how the Aruch HaShulchan learns it. I didn't see anybody learns any better. Okay? So again, the question is whether we learn out from the Yachid's korban, which is puzzle, that the Tzibur's korban is defective Or I say no, since the Tzibur's korban can be done, it's not even defective. And therefore the nafkamina is, of course, that if you have Kohanim, Bali Mumi, to hurt him to Shecht, then you have to retain whatever you can of the korban b'tahara. Okay? Says Yerushalmi further. Explaining this chiluk further. Hakravim liyachid. What's my evidence for this? Or what? Not evidence, but what's my logic here? Hakravim liyachid. The dam and the imurim for an individual's korban. This is my proof to tell you that there's a difference between the korban yachid and korban tzibur. I want to back it up to you. Well, so hakravim liyachid. Look. If the imur and the dam became tamei, the korban yachid, and we know about it, do we say let it go through and let the tzitz be maratza? No. If you know about it ahead of time, you have to stop, right? Now, craving the yachid, im yeshlo, if he's got another korban, omri lo have, we say bring the other korban. You got a backup, bring the backup. Vim lav, what if you don't got a backup? Tough luck. Ein matirin lo lizrok es dama. We don't let you do the blood. If you went there and did it and didn't ask any questions, we let you. So it works, but the avid because of the tzitz. But the chatchil, we don't you do that. Don't let you do that. Now, following those lines, if the kohen is tamei, in the case of a yochid's korban, ben sheyesh ben shein lo, regardless of whether he has a backup or not, and regardless of whether we know about it or not, lo so it doesn't work. No way, oh no how, because it's the tzitz is not maratza, and the kohanim only on the blood and on the imurim. Well, we know that that's not true by the tzibur. How craving the tzibur, if the dam or the imur of the tzibur have becomes tamei, im yesh, if he's got a backup, or mi love, we tell bring the backup. Vim love, if not, in a korban tzibur, matiri lo lizrok b'tchila. We let him go ahead and do it. Why? Because to mocha b'tzibur. And a makrivin l'tzibur. And also in terms of kohanim become tamei. Ben sheyesh lo, ben she'ein lo, whether he's got a backup or doesn't have a backup, Avar Vizar Kurza, Avar Vizar is Lav Dafka. Because of course tu Muhutra B'tzibur, right? So you can go ahead and be do Zrika Saddam. So the Yerushalmi is making the case and saying you can't extrapolate from the case of an individual korban. Yes, an individual korban. So there we individual korban of an individual. Where Tumas Nahutra B'tzibur, it's taka defective. Right? It's taka defective and messed up and puzzle, whatever the case may be. And therefore, Lamaisa has all sorts of problems. You might not be Yotze at all. Even if you are Yotze, you certainly can't eat it, right? But by a korban tzibur, where we're being where things are too much of a tzibur, and therefore now it doesn't work for the craving. It works for the craving, where the blood and the imurim came to me, even the chatchila. And it works even for the makrivim, for the kohanim came to me, which doesn't work at all by the korban of the yachid. Perhaps there's no defect whatsoever, and since it's not defective in any way, shape, or form, so therefore the tamei part separate and the tar part separate. The tumah was mutter for the blood, but the korban itself, which remained tar, you have to preserve all its dinim of tahara. Okay.
Is there any difference between tumah where the kahal is on tamei versus?
Yeah, there for sure they can be matamei it. We're talking about specifically here in a case where the kohanim are tamei, but not the Yisraelim.
Yeah, so that tumah kicks in for that too.
Kicks for that, right, it does. For the avodah, it kicks in for avodah. The shaila is what to do with the eating. Let's say the Kohen Gadol died in Erev Pesach and all the Kohanim are tamei. That's the type of case I'm talking about. Yes, the tumah true tzibur kicks there for the avodah. The question is what happens for the achila, whether then you can eat a betum or as not. And it comes out pashas that you can't. That's the pashas of the Gemara. Rabbi Lezer. Rabbi Lezer said, "Masnisa b'ba betuma mishari shoyna." You should know There are a Mishnah which says you can eat the Pesach when you're Tameh. It's only if you're Tameh from the beginning, from the time Shechita. But if the time of Shechita, the korban was tar, then the korban became Tameh afterwards, or the people became Tameh. The korban cannot be in Betuma. Can't, because it started out being a Torah one. Too much of a tzibur must be from the beginning, not something which started in the middle of the process. Shachta b'tara v'nid ma'atzibur, and therefore, if you shechta the korban b'tara and then the tzibur became tamei, yizayik adam b'tara. Even though the tzibur is all tamei, the blood must be thrown by the kohanim who still are tar. This is the reverse case. The tzibur is tamei, the kohanim are tar. So in this case, I remember the tzibur became tamei when? After the shechita, right? Yizorek adam b'tara, the blood must be thrown b'tara, v'ayocha basar b'tuma. Can't eat the meat b'tuma. Rabbi Law b'shem Rabbi Yochanan said, Rabbi Nosani. That's like Rabbi Nosan. To Rabbi Nosan, Amar Yotzim Izrika, your Yotzim Izrika, it should be below. The letters got transposed. Below Achilu is out Achilu. But others would argue, the Rabban would argue and say that no, that once even the tzibur came time after Shechita, it's carte blanche because Pesach is meant for Achila, and therefore you can eat Betuma. I'm not sure why Rabbi Law and Rabbi Yochanan felt compelled to say that, but that's what he brings down. Now, new case. Should be a dot there, not 2 words later. Shachta b'tara. Why did you shech the korban b'tara? V'nitma hadam, and then it should be ve'hatzibur. So this is mamish the same case we had before, right? You shech the b'tara, then the blood became tamei and the tzibur came tamei. What do we do in that case? So yizorek hatam b'tuma. The blood is sprinkled b'tuma, thrown b'tuma. Va'yocha habasar b'tuma, but the meat cannot be in b'tuma. Now before we said. Oh, but it's different than the case before. I'm sorry. The case before, the tzibur remained tar. Here, the tzibur came tamei as well. Okay? So here, what's the halacha? So according to Rabbi Nelson, of course he does rikas adam without achila. But like Rabbanan who argue, what's the halacha? So Rabbi Yochanan said, nevertheless, here you don't eat. Why? Mipnei marisayin. Adorabana. Why is that? Shelo yom, that people shouldn't say, hey, what's going on? Rinu Pesach ba b'tara. We saw a Pesach which came b'tara, next which should be v'necha b'tuma, and was eaten b'tuma. In other words, people won't have the sensitivity to discern and distinguish and know that this Pesach became tummy in the middle, and that's what we're eating. And that we became tummy in the middle, that's what we're eating. They'll think that any time a Pesach comes even b'tara, so we can still eat a betuma, and that's not true. So there, because the Marasai, unless people make that mistake, we don't allow them to eat it at all. Okay, is that clear? Now, Me'ato, if that's out of the case, the next few lines, by the way, to the bottom, almost to the bottom of the Amud, actually, next 6, 7 lines are very difficult. Lieberman says he doesn't understand them, and everybody has difficulty with them. Baruch Hashem, you've come to the right place this evening. I will now tell you my pshat. You will have the opportunity to slug me up, of course, but I think I have a good one here. Okay? But, me'ato lo yizorek adam. Let's say, betuma. What's your tomorrow sign? So where do you draw the line? Look, the shechita was betara, right? So you shouldn't be allowed to do even the zrikas adam betuma. Because people say, we saw a Pesach which began, we see Pesach can begin at Tara and end the Tuma, and they'll come to all sorts of misjudgments, right? So therefore, let's worry about Marasayin. They shouldn't say Pesach which came at Tara, the blood is thrown betuma. Now, until there, everybody agrees on the pshat. From here on in, it's my pshat.
What is Rabbi Nosson?
So, ha soifcha meimar Rabbi Nosani. Now, nobody understands. So everyone has difficulty with this line, but I think the line says, maybe you'll tell me. It's like v'chi tema. and maybe I know eventually you're going to say this is Rabbi Nosson, right? So you're going to say, like Rabbi Nosson, you don't have to achila, you can do zrika, not achila. That's no good. Says Yerushalmi, I anticipate that. But you should know, Mod Rabbi Nosson b'chol of a zokin. Rabbi Nosson concedes there's got to be some hechitim to eat, right? You can't. You're not allowed to do zrika sadam ichor Rabbi Nosson on an old man or a cholet. Even though Rabbi Nosson knows theoretically you don't need any achila, in practice it has to be for somebody who can suitable to eat, right? So therefore, here, how can I do the zrika sadam? In other words, you want to say no, people will know. Like Rabbi Nosson, that's not afraid for my sign, because people will know that you do zrika sadam betuma, and then you do zrika sadam, and then you don't eat it. It's not. People understand there's no marasayan because people are not going to think that it was done betuma because they don't see it eating afterwards. So it says more no. Even Rabbi Nosson. Rabbi Nosson holds that the only time you do zrika is if there's someone you could potentially eat. So again, we have a marasayan problem here that people are going to say, even if we don't let them eat later on, we say don't eat it because you're tamei. But still it's a marasayan problem because people know that even Rabbi Nosson who holds zrika sadam is quote unquote independent of the achila, there have to be some ochlim. So people say, vice dois, this comes out that I can start a Pesach B'tara and finish a Betuma. Hi, the rabbis didn't let me eat it. Okay, for some reason they didn't want me to eat it. But the halacha is that I can go ahead and do it because even Rabbi Nosson requires some linkage between Tzrika and Achila. So says the Gemara, no. Mod Rabbi Nosson hi b'chabura shetanit ma'ovet shelo shenitchi l'pesach sheni. A very beautiful distinction Rabbi Nosson makes. It depends, it depends on what became tamei. If the blood became tamei, then you can continue the avoda. Because people are not such big, people don't, the dam being tamei is not such a public thing. Then you can do zrika sadam, and that's okay, there's no marasayin. Rabbi Nosson, however, concedes, if the person became tamei, meaning the kohani became tamei, then you arrest the process midstream. Hi, tumahutra b'tzibur, but that's marasayin. People think a korban starts out being tor can continue b'tuma. In that case, even though midaraisa you can continue tumahutra b'tzibur, right? At least the zrika you can do. Perhaps according to Rabbanim, perhaps even the achila. But even there, Rabbi Nosson says you got to arrest the process midstream because of marasayin, and everybody's nidcha Pesach sheni. Okay, very interesting. Again, it depends who becomes tamei. Again, marasayin depends on who becomes tamei at what stage. Let's summarize what we saw. If you did shachta b'tara and then the blood became tamei, Rabbi Yirmiyah said, named Rabbi Yochanan, that there's marasayin, right? Okay. Then the Gemara asked, and then he can't eat it. Then the Gemara asked, well, if that's the case, don't even do zrika sadam, right? And maybe you'll say that zrika sadam can be done according to Rabbi Nosson, right? The rest of zrika sadam and achila can be disassociated from each other, and they can't be completely disassociated from each other. If you're not going to have anybody eat that year, it's like shmir shechli for a choila or zokin. So how can you possibly disassociate? So says the Gemara in answering the question that there's a distinction. When does Rabbi Nosson holds that there is marasayin and you don't even do zrika sadam where the kohen becomes tamei? Because then people are not going to be able to distinguish. They'll say you did zrika sadam. So what's going on here, right? Zrika sadam. You start b'tara and you finish b'tuma, how can you possibly have such a thing? Rabbi Nosson does allow you to do zrika sadam where you start off with the kohen, you start b'tara and then the blood becomes tamei, because that's not such much as zrika sadam, a problem of marasayin. Now l'maisa, okay, it seems according to Rabbi Nosson, no, in these circumstances we don't let the people eat. Okay. What happens is we allow the process to continue to the point of zrika, because Rabbi Nosson holds Zrika and Achila are disassociated, but we do not allow the process to continue beyond that to Achila. Okay? Like Rabbanan, right? If you don't do Achila, you don't do Zrika because they're linked. You can do Zrika, you can do Achila. But like Rabbi Nosson, we can stop in the middle. We stop in it, but it depends where we stop it. If the Kohen became Tameh, we don't even do Zrika. If the Dam became Dami, we do Zrika, but we don't do Achila afterwards. Okay? Says Yerushalmi further. Similarly, Rabbi Nosson concedes if after the Chabura slaughtered their Korban Pesach and did this Zrika Saddam, they skinned the Korban Pesach and whoops, they found a mum in the Korban Pesach, a wart on the Korban Pesach. Sheni Tchil Pesach Sheni. Even though Rabbi Nosson knows that the Zrika and the Achila are divorced, but here retroactively became clear that the Korban was no good, right? So obviously you push on Pesach Sheni. Now, once we're on the topic of warts, Chamesh Chaburos, this case you did have in the Bavli, Chamesh Chaburos Shenid Nisarver Oretz Pischem. You have 5 groups who already did the whole Avodah. Then the hides of their Korban Pesach got mixed up. Nimtzi Aboyos Boros Shel Achas Man, and he found a wart on one of them. So Kulam Yetzu Beis Yisrael, they have to burn all the Korbanos, and they're all none of them can eat their Korban Pesach that year, right? That means Yetzu Beis Yisrael, because one of them is no good. We don't know whose. Right? Upturin last is Pesach Sheni. But they're part to make Pesach Sheni because they did the Avodah Kedin. Now, Savrin made with Rabbi Nosson. They want to say that that's Rabbi Nosson who holds the Yetzer Korban Pesach without Achila. Says more, no! Tipata Dibra Hakol. It's according to everybody. How so? Because it's Kimitame B'Safek Kever Atom. Whenever you have a Safek, which is not known at the time as Zrika Saddam, literally, Kever Atom is where you passed over a grave which is not known to anybody, and then he did the Avodah. So special lochel Moshe Sinai that since you were not aware of the Safek, so b'diavad you were Yotzei, even though later on it comes out you passed over somewhere which is definitely Tameh. So here too, since at the time he did the Avodah you were not aware of the Safek, then you're allowed to you're considered to have been Yotzei the Korban Pesach, because otherwise the Mechal Mayim throws in the Girsa the Lochain, because if not, like the Elo Chain, Rabbi Nosson Zarika Saddam Kohen Nosson could introduce Rika Saddam. How is it possible? You wanted to say it's Rabbi Nosson, so you wanted to say, this is all the Mechal Mayim puts this all into this one line where it says, you want to say it's Rabbi Nosson. So you wanted to say, why is it word according to Rabbi Nosson? Because according to Rabbi Nosson, even if you found the word before Zrika Saddam, you could do Zrika Saddam. Why? Because you can do Zrika even if you can't do Achila. Of course, that's not true. Even Rabbi Nosson knows the Baal Mum is no good. So even Rabbi Nosson has told that it's a case where you were not aware at the time he did Zrika that the Korban was puzzled. So therefore, even according to Rabbi Nosson, it's a case where the reason why I say we are Yotzei because of the Zrika is because it was like Tumas Kever at the home. It was no way of knowing at the time, or it was you did not know at the time, and that's why B'diavad it works both according to Rabbi Nosson and according to Rabbanan, and the Zrika works even without the Achila. Not because Zrika without Achila is good. So we don't allow, like Rabbanan, we never allow Zrika without Achila lichatchila. But here we're talking about a b'diavad situation. That's why, and we don't know whose korban was tameh. So therefore, we assume we don't know whose korban at the mum. So therefore, we assume because of the Safi Keratom that the all were valid, and none of them make Pesach Sheni. Okay, that was the end of the hard part. Rabbi Yochanan, Rabbi Shmuel, B'Shem Rabbi Yeshua said, "Kasav echad Raimeh." One pasuk says, "Ach b'shchor shor." Or Bechor Kesev, or Bechor Eis, the Bechoros of all these animals, they're all Karbanos, of course. Because of Echoraimer, another pasuk says, B'zarka koines Adam al Mizbeach Hashem. You should throw the blood on the Mizbeach of Hashem. Big typo here. It should be Pesach with a tuf at the opening of Oel Moed, right? So I got a problem. it's one pasuk says, the first pasuk in Bamidbar talks about eating the Bechor. The second pasuk talks about putting on the Imurim. So what do I do with these two pasukim? Which one is primary? So it says more, very simple. Since we have two pasukim, it means either one. And this is the source for saying, by all other korbanos, you don't need basar. You can have either basar or imurim, because it says by Bechor once stressing eating, it says by Bechor elsewhere stressing the imurim, so therefore either or suffices. Talmud today we learned over there, Nit Mushioreh by Menachos. If the shrine became Tameh, after you took off the komets, the shrine became lost before he did the put on the mizbeach. Another type of the careless sort, Avdu with an aleph, right? Avdu shiur. The shrine got lost post the burnt. Kemidas Rabbi Lezer Kshera, like Rabbi Lezer, it's kosher. Now Rabbi Lezer holds that the blood by regular korbanos, blood you can throw the blood even if you got no meat and no imurim left. So too by the mincha, even if you have no shiraim left, it's okay. Because Rabbi Shua says you have to have by regular korban either imurim or basar left. Here you have to have some shiraim left, otherwise it's possible. Shelo be kli sharis. What if you didn't put the komets in the kli sharis? You have to put the komets on the way when you transport the mizbeach. You have to put it into a kli sharis. You pick it in your fingers, and then you put it into a kli sharis, into a holy vessel. So psula, it's possible. That komets is no good. Rabbi Shmuel is machshir. It's not relevant to our sugya. It's machlokas about the concept of komets, whether it needs a kli sharis in order to be mekadosh. Hikter comes to Pamayim. Don't ask me why the guy did this. There's some confusion. He did the komets in two shots, half once and half another time. So Hikter komets Pamayim, it's keshera. Al daiti to Rabbi Lezer. Now he would explain the Rabbi Lezer and Bishul, which you just brought down. It must be something out of order. But al daiti to Rabbi Lezer, im ein dam ein basar. If there's no blood, of course you can't eat the meat. But obviously ein basar yesh dam. But if there's no blood, you can still bring the blood. Again, he holds that tzrika sadan can be done even if there's no basar. Similarly, main komets in shirayim. If there's no komets, there's no shirayim, because that's the zrika. Obviously, shirayim, there's komets, but even if there's no shirayim, you can still do the komets. Al daiti Rabbi Shua, Rabbi Yoshua, imein dam ein basar. If there's no blood, there's no meat. V'imein basar ein dam. There's no meat, there's no blood either, because it has to be matter something. And similarly, main komets in shirayim, main komets. Say anybody menachos. Rabbi Mona said, Tipater, our Mishnah says that Omer Shtei Alechem come betuma, it's got to be Rabbi Lezer. The Rabbi Lezer Merav B'Shein Shirayim Yesh Komets. When the Omer comes to Tuma, can he eat the korban Omer? No, but nonetheless it says in our Mishnah that he can do the avoda. How can you do the avoda? If there's no shirayim now to bring komets, it must be our Mishnah's going to Rabbi Eliezer, who says that he can do komets even without shirayim, right? Let's remember B'Shein Shirayim Yesh Komets. Rabbi Yisrael Rabun, Rav Rabbi Yochanan Tarvei and Omrin. No, Rav and Rabbi Yochanan both said he ain't going like Rabbi Yeshua, because Moed Rabbi Yeshua Shim Ovar V'Zarek Saddam Burza. But the evidence it works, and our Mishnah says that if the mincha works, it's talking about b'di'evet, and b'di'evet really even a mincha sibor should not come l'chadchila b'tuma. Our Mishnah, Rabbi Yeshua, is talking about b'di'evet. Of course, l'chadchila should not, because no shrine b'di'evet it does work. Okay, Nit makol or rubo. If the congregation, or the majority of the congregation is tummy, or she'll climb tummy or kol tar. We should have asked before the Gemara, right? Climb tummy, the kol is tar. Yasu betuma, you do a betuma. Nit ma mute kol. Minority of the kol is the tummy. Ha toyer mosi misarishon. The Torah make Pesach Rishon. But may mosi misashain. May make Pesach Sheni. Montana Rov, who said the majority is you have need a majority. Rabbi Meir. The Tani Rabbi Meir Omer. Who machzis kol shvatim? It doesn't matter if you only have half of all the shvatim, meaning only 6 shvatim are tamei. Who machzis kol shevet, and or half of all each one of the 12 shvatim, but uvad rov as long as they make up a majority of Klal Yisrael. And in that case, it's talking about in Masech Orios, they bring a par helim tzibor if they did something wrong together. Rabbi Yehuda Omer, Chatzi kol shevet v'shevet. Rabbi Yehuda argues, says half of each and every shevet will be uvad rov. In that case, if it's half of every shevet, you need a majority of the congregation. But shvatim shleimim, if entire shvatim were chaytei, even one shevet echad kol shvatim. So that one shevet is go where everybody else, that they can all be mitzdarf in one par elim davar if the Sanhedrin was more the wrong halacha. We'll come back to this tomorrow, but according to him, even if one shevet is tamei here, you can all of Am Yisrael could do the korban pesach b'tumah. Okay, we have this in the Bavli as well, right? But I don't remember if we brought them the sugi of par elim davar. We'll come back to it tomorrow.